All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Recovery First podcast. I'm your host, Mike Todd. We are here live at the studios in Greenville, South Carolina. It's been a hot October day, but it's not raining. But tonight's show is brought to you by the South Carolina Recovery Housing Association. They have gotten out a little over 1,000 naloxone kits to housing and recovery housing statewide in South Carolina, and they've had 13 reported overdose reversals. A little bit about Freedom Recovery Center and the Recovery First program. It's an initiative and community program in Greenville, South Carolina, supporting those who suffer from substance use disorder by providing access to treatment, recovery services, and permanent housing. We want to remind everyone of the South Carolina Recovery Housing Support Hotline. It's right up here. If you have questions about recovery housing or need to speak with a peer support specialist about your situation, call 1-800-396-7919. All calls are confidential. Todd had it up there on the screen. Okay, just a few things we need to remind you about. The Jessie May Harm Reduction Bus. We always mention this bus. We are very, very proud of this initiative here in Greenville, South Carolina. They are at the old Save More parking lot off of Wade Hampton Boulevard. It's kind of the Motel 6 area. They're there from 5 to 7 on Friday nights. They will be out there giving out naloxone, clean syringes, and spreading love, dignity, and the message of recovery all through the community. Also on Thursday nights, as a matter of fact, they're out there tonight. They're at New Life Church. That's in the Berea area, the West Greenville area off White Horse Road. The actual address is 2690 West Ridge Drive in Greenville. They're there from 7 to 9. If you need more information, please reach out to us and we'll get you there. So, I'm here tonight with my good friend, Nicole Criss. Here we're going to go through all this stuff. Nicole holds a master's in addiction studies. She is finishing her doctorate in human services, specializing in leadership. She is also a state and nationally certified peer support specialist and sits on the board of directors for Favor, South Carolina. She helps head up the newly formed, we're going to talk about this tonight. She helps head up the newly formed South Carolina Recovery Coalition and is an organizer for the South Carolina Recovery Advocacy Project. Good Lord. Do I need to go through that? We've been friends. We've gotten to be really good friends, okay? And there's no doubt about that. And I'll say this, okay? Nicole is kind of like that, like a little sister to me, but she I don't know, she straightens me out a lot. But anyway, I had no idea that you, until I put it down on paper, all this stuff that you were doing. I want to say this to you as a big bro. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
I mean, I really am. And you are an inspiration. I don't think that you hear that enough. I think we all have a tendency to do too much. We were kind of talking about that in the green room, that we both are I don't know, we need to chill out, but I don't know how to do that.
Yeah. So recovery taught me to keep coming back, and I keep coming back and adding more and more and more. But School's almost done, and that's been a 7-year journey that I will be happy to end.
Yeah. And we'll get into maybe where you want to go, but I do want to know a little bit, I know a little bit about, tell us a little bit about where you grew up
So I come from a little town about 30 miles north of Baltimore City in Maryland. So I like crabs and I miss crabs. Blue crabs. And the town I came from was pretty much upper middle class. And as I was growing up, there was it was just your typical childhood use. I can remember though, like getting drunk on my way while I was walking to a middle school dance. So like substance use hit me early, and my parents split up. I have a brother who he became addicted to heroin when he was 15, and he's now in prison. If it wasn't for him, I may have gone down that path too. My journey, I asked for help before I transitioned from pills to heroin. So yeah, and then went on to get married like an idiot twice. I have 2 sons, one from the first marriage, one from the second marriage.
Yeah.
And my older son has definitely experienced substance use disorder. And my younger son, he's 19, and he's at that age that I'm not real sure. He's definitely used things. And I'm sure that a lot of it's been hidden from me. Like I told you, he just spent his first overnight in J. Rubin, which is the local jail here for DWI. So I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens.
But you've done great with them. You really have. You've done the best you can. I know how that goes. But let me ask you this though. Looking back, and one of the things that we did at Mobilize Recovery, because I talked to Carlia about this last week. Like I just used to think I was crazy. Seriously. I'm really grateful for Ryan Hampton, that movement, getting us all together, because prior to that, I mean, you and I had a relationship but I just thought I was just this nut that wanted to save the world and felt so deeply about people who suffer from mental illness and substance use disorder, because obviously I have too. It's been ongoing and so I just thought I was just like nuts until I got in that. And then I was like, oh, there's a bunch of people like I found my people. But was there like a time, we talked about this a little bit at Mobilize Recovery. Was there like a period where you were like, you realized like you were that way, like you were just you were an advocate from hell. I'm just going to say that. I don't mind. You know it. But was there something that like, can you think of like as a kid?
So I come from a family that has generations deep issues with substance use. My mom was an alcoholic. My grandfather was an alcoholic. And I'm sure going back further, I just don't know about. And growing up in a family with a parent who's an alcoholic, it can give you certain characteristics and certain drives. I had a younger brother, and I think that's kind of where it started, was like me wanting to advocate for the vulnerable.
Yeah.
So I think that's where it started. And then as I grew up, I kind of had to advocate for myself. And I think that's where I also gained one of the characteristics that I think is the strongest in my personality is my hard-headedness or persistence is a kinder way to phrase it. And when I got into recovery, about, I don't even know if it was a year in, some friends of mine were going to the Unite to Face Addiction rally in Washington, D.C. in 2015. Mm-hmm. And I barely knew recovery, let alone advocacy and recovery, for recovery, substance use, and mental health and all that. And here I am. Because this is how I do things. I just walk right through doors that open, no matter what, not knowing what I'm getting involved in, like my friendship with you. And, so like I spent a couple days in DC and met these people that were so passionate. And I heard, politicians and actresses and actors and musicians all talk about recovery. And then I started to learn the history of the advocacy movement around recovery. And the more I learned, the more I felt moved that this is why I was here. Like at 41 years old, learned why I was put on this earth.
Wow.
And that's kind of where I had my aha moment.
That's beautiful, because okay. And I wish we had the pictures. I didn't think about this, but there's like pictures, and I think you got war paint or something on.
Yeah.
So it was. And so the interesting thing about that, Nicole, is now I had heard about that later. Now I brought it up and I was like, damn, I wish I'd have gone to that, because I would fit right in with these folks. But actually, when you hear Brian Hampton talk about mobilized recovery, he was moved by that movement too. So so we're gonna like claim it right here tonight. We need to march on Washington again. See, this is the kind of shit that you and I do when we start talking, right?
God only knows what's going to happen when we talk.
This is like why you're like my adopted sister, because it's like we've been talking like 5 minutes, and we're like, okay, we just need to march on Washington. And I don't know, there's like 2 people watching, but we'll like play this damn thing. We'll tape it over and over again. So Nicole Criss and Mike Todd tonight are declaring that we need to march on Washington. We need to do that again, because it brought so many people. Look what it did for you. And it just amazing. So you talked a little bit about that moment when you got in recovery earlier. So I'm going to go forward just a little bit here, but what is your pathway to recovery? Hold on. Are there different things you've done through the years? Is there some solid things that you do in your recovery? Because one thing, we know that there are many pathways, and that's helped me a lot. Like, what are some of the things that you do? You say you're going to meetings, but I'm proud of you. Just kidding.
So when I first got into recovery, so I went to treatment, and I was in treatment for 12 days. For me, in my situation, I had to be inpatient, and I was in a dual diagnosis center, which they call co-occurring. And when I was released and set free to the world, they told me to know where my first meeting was. Get to a meeting the night I was released. And so I followed directions, and my path of recovery is abstinence-based. And that has been my path the entire time. I've been in recovery since February 20th, 2014. And that's what's worked for me. However, I am a strong advocate, supporter, and don't try to tell me any different or I'll fight you. People can recover however works for them.
Yeah.
This is just what works for me. Doesn't mean that it's going to work for you or anyone else. And so, for the first 2 years of my recovery, I was in Maryland, and I went to a fellowship. And then I moved down here to Myrtle Beach, and probably for the first 2 years that after I moved to Myrtle Beach, I was still very active in my fellowship. I did a lot of service work and all of the things. And then I my recovery kind of blossomed a little bit and changed. And I went more into the recovery community organization world, and and started learning and facilitating recovery meetings and learning about peer support and providing services through that. And now My recovery definitely doesn't look like it used to. Meetings are not a huge priority for me. However, what is really important for me is that I have a network of friends that are very close to me that are very aware of what's going on with me, so that I can call them up at any time and I don't have to give them this is what happened in the last year and this is where I am today when I'm going through a crisis. I can pick up the phone and call them and just tell them this is what happened this week. And that has saved my ass many times.
Yeah.
We actually have a group of girls and we get together at least once a month. And it's just, we get together at a house, at one of our houses, and we just hang out and chat. And that's a way for me to keep my recovery strong. And I do hit meetings when I can. And I do all the things I can, and it's worked for me. But the backbone of everything, obviously I've done a lot of work on myself. And I've also maintained a tight network of folks around me.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm in that circle. I mean, I agree, because it's really like you're my female good friend that I go to in recovery. And it's like, my wife likes you. And if you're going to have like a opposite sex good friend, your spouse, but you are like, for me, kind of like a little sister, but at the same time, you reel me in. Like, Mike, you're going back to that old language again, or something. And then I'm really good at kind of reeling you in at some things. And we just complement each other real well. I do want to talk about this because I'm really proud of this initiative. I'm proud of our state. I'm proud of the folks at DAODAS at the department, and that stands for Department of Alcohol and Other Drug Abuse Services, because I want to say this, they spearheaded this. And I'm talking about this newly formed South Carolina Recovery Coalition. I don't even know like what my part is going to be in it. It doesn't really matter. Like, I'm just there to support it and to do whatever. But you and Nate Tate are kind of heading that up. Where do you see that going? Like, this is where we're really going to get fired up, because like, tell me a little bit about like, what do you see with that? And I'm really proud of our state for doing that. I can't say that enough. Our director, Sarah Goldsby, they all came up to do, okay, I'll say this. I don't want to but I'm really proud that they stepped up and said, let's bring recovering people to the table. I can't say enough I want to commend them for that. So, but like, what do you see? Where do you see this South Carolina Recovery Coalition going? I'm excited about it. I'll hush now.
That'll last 2 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
So, I'm really happy that this is an initiative that DAODAS supported. Yeah. And I think that recovery support services are a crucial part of combating overdose deaths, combating all of the problems that we're seeing in this crisis that we're in. And the only, by definition, recovery support services are provided by people who have experienced successful recovery from substance use disorder. Yeah. And bringing us to the table and allowing us to form this organization and define what that looks like. And, the most important thing I can say is actually giving us a seat at the table. Yeah. And, so there are a lot of different recovery support services. There's collegiate recovery, there's recovery residence programs, there's recovery community organizations, peer support, peer navigation, all kinds of stuff. And the problem is that there's varying levels of quality. There's varying levels of training or lack thereof. There's varying resources, which kind of create all of these different levels of things. Yeah. So I think, and I hope that one of the things that comes out of this coalition is helping to bring all of the recovery support services together and to support each other and to raise each other up, because some support services have resources that others don't. So if one can learn from another's lived mistakes or lived successes, that makes things easier, and it's a less of a drain on resources. Additionally, we want to make sure that when people are seeking services, that they are receiving safe services.
Yeah.
They're not getting exploited. They're not, all of the bad things that we hear that can happen aren't happening.
Yeah, and I think it's I kind of think about it sometimes. I'm like, could you imagine, like, okay, and Rich Jones and I have had this kind of conversation. Like years ago, nobody was really thinking about this stuff. We were all anonymous. We were in our cellars and stuff and drinking our coffee and we, doing our thing. And then all of a sudden, the opioid crisis hit, and then people started getting passionate because our friends were dying, and now Deotis has all these crazy people like us. And so, I don't think that we commend them enough. And I'm not like trying to kiss their butt, or I don't want anybody that's got to be hard. So I do think that this is an opportunity, and I want to talk about Nicole is there, and with Favor South Carolina, Ed Johnson, Dean Lang with the South Carolina Alliance for Recovery Residences. They're doing the certifications and so forth, trying to reel in recovery residences. I mean, you talking about a lot of strong individuals that are like, this is my program. Because I'm one of them. Okay, I'll admit it. And so, but at some point, you're right, Nicole. We've got to. I know we're all passionate. We got to all get together and start working together. And I think this is a great opportunity. And as you guys kind of form this thing, and maybe I can get my enthusiasm in there, we can start bringing more and more people to the table and start getting everybody together, start maybe practicing these principles before personalities. Because it's true. I mean, it's just so true. We're so passionate about everything, and we just butt heads, but I think it's going to be okay. So, yeah, I'm excited about it. And here's the, I got questions here, but I'm kind of Todd's going to go crazy. I'm going to veer away, but hold on just a second. It's okay. Because we were talking, really concerned about Horry County. My heart is in Horry County. I hang my hat in Greenville. It's my home. It's where my wife is from. But my family is from Horry County. I got in recovery in Horry County. My daddy's from Horry County. My brother is a paramedic there, and now he's an engineer, but with his fire truck or whatever. But the point I'm trying to make is, we just got the numbers, and they're double what everybody else is in the state. What do you think's attributing to that, Nicole? I mean, you're a smart person, okay? And I have my ideas, but what in the world is attributing when you have double what you have in, Greenville's getting hammered, right?
Yeah. So just real quick, I want to jump in because, so the August overdose account, August overdose by count, it was 174 in Horry County. Charleston had 85. Greenville had 85. So that's 89 more for Horry County than the second and third, who are tied.
Right.
And then you go down to York County, which was 49. Spartanburg 45. Richland 44. So yeah, I just wanted to throw those numbers out. It's kind of crazy that it's triple some counties and double those that are right behind them.
So,
her blood's boiling, I can tell.
Myrtle Beach, which is located in Horry County,
yeah,
is a very interesting area.
Okay.
one thing to remember is that it's tourist, and the economic driver is tourism. COVID had an impact on that, which knocked a lot of people out of jobs. And I just had a guy come in today who had experienced successful abstinent-based recovery for 2 years, and then COVID hit. And he started doing fentanyl and straight fentanyl. Now he's looking for a way out. However, Suboxone does not work very well to transition people who are on fentanyl, because it kicks them even after they've had a few days because in order to get put on Suboxone, you have to be in active withdrawal. And when you come off of fentanyl, even when you're exhibiting the symptoms of active withdrawal, if you take Suboxone, sometimes it can still kick you into withdrawal worse. So, there's a lot of fentanyl on the streets. We're handing out fentanyl test strips, and it is being found in a lot of the drugs that are being tested, even in stimulants like cocaine and methamphetamines. And the thing to remember about when fentanyl is found in stimulants is that typically people who take stimulants don't have any tolerance for opiates at all. Mm-hmm. So if the fentanyl is in there, then that's going to have a huge impact compared to someone who's taking heroin. Because at least when somebody takes heroin, they do have some tolerance to opiates. So that's killing people. Just the fact that fentanyl is in everything. But I would assume that that's probably happening in areas like Greenville and other areas in the state too. Yeah. I can say that there's a lot of hotels down here that people, they go crash at and they use together. There's not a lot of resources in the community that there's a lot of stigma on the streets of Myrtle Beach around substance use disorder. We haven't done a very good job in our area of trying to create a recovery-friendly community and trying to show people who are in actively using. We aren't doing a good job of showing them unconditional love, because without that, people aren't encouraged to seek help. They just beat themselves up more and more. And it's unfortunate. And again, I've heard this said on so many different levels, and it holds very, very true, especially in the city of Myrtle Beach, is we cannot arrest our way out of this. The only way that we can do better is to find a way to help and support people. And another key factor is that we need to be able to accept people and support them and embrace the concept of multiple pathways. Because it's not abstinence only, my way or no way. And that is definitely the climate that I've experienced here in Myrtle Beach.
Nicole, I do have a question. And we were talking prior, as you know, in Greenville, and of course, our numbers, we're really kind of neck and neck with Horry County. Okay. Now, you know that I love our harm reduction bus. I love Challenges Inc. I can't speak highly enough of Mark Burrows and Chris Stepp. And, but here, and what they're doing, what if, after we march on Washington, what if we raise the money to get a little Frito-Lay van, bus, or whatever, to get it very visible like we do here, and we raise the money to get naloxone and fresh syringes, and we had and I'll tell you something else that Mark and them are doing too. They've got like these folks that are kind of hanging out that are there's one lady that like does little bowls for them and just kind of hangs out and talks to them. I wish I can remember her name right off the bat, but they're doing these things. What if we did that initiative in Horry County and Myrtle Beach? I think it would make a difference. And we had and got them to the services that we have with the county services. Do you think it's possible that we could pull this off?
I can tell you that a few years ago, we had a volunteer who went down on the streets of Myrtle Beach to the homeless encampments with the intention of handing out coats and things like that, because it was during the winter time.
Sure.
And she also had Narcan with her that we had given. She was, doing it for Favor. And she was threatened to be arrested, saying that she was contributing to the delinquency of the homeless. So that's another problem. And that could be a barrier that may be experienced should we try to do the same thing that Challenges is doing in Greenville with the bus. I will say that personally, as a volunteer for Challenges, I have been able to interact with some people and give them the supplies that they need to help keep them safe. And that's just personal volunteer work that I do in my spare time. And Favor Grand Strand as a whole has a contract with DAODAS to be a community Narcan provider. And in the last 3 months, out of the Narcan that we've handed out, we've had 20, I know it's over 25. It's between 25 and 30 overdose reversals reported back to us. And that's huge just in that short amount of time. And we just started the contract with the fentanyl test strips. And, so we've been getting as many of those on the street along with the Narcan as much as we can to try to do something.
Yeah. And both of those, once again, DAODAS does the community Narcan, and they also do the fentanyl test strips. So a shout out again. Thank you, really. But here's the thing. All right. So we know this. We know that we'll call it Narcan is in the nasal spray, but it's all naloxone, right? Could correct me because, I might say something wrong here. I'm the old guy. But we know that the vials are much less expensive, okay? They come with 2 vials. They come with a syringe, which is, okay. So the point I'm trying to make is for $2 or $3, we can go to places like the Clinton Foundation, Sandguard. I think She Powell was getting some. I mean, the point I'm trying to make is we could get, like, for Horry County, let's just say we can do, because I'm going to tell you we can do this, okay? I don't want to hear we can't. We can, okay? We can get 20 or 30,000 doses and get an army of people to get this naloxone out. And if Myrtle Beach wants to be, I'm sorry, if Myrtle Beach wants to be an ass about it, I probably shouldn't say that on the air or whatever. But if Myrtle Beach wants to be that way, then we'll park the dang thing right on the outskirts in Horry County. I mean, whatever we've got to do, but I believe that we can do the same thing in Horry County. And I think that maybe Favor Grand Strand or whatever whatever direction you guys are going to do. But what we've got to do, like what we did here, Nicole, was Mark Burrows has this harm reduction organization, and then he had a doctor. And so we applied for those grants, and I think we ended up with a good 20,000 units. And so, so I think we can do that in Horry County. And if they don't like it, then lock us up. Okay. And then I'm going to get real loud. If I have to go out there and get a hotel for a couple of weeks, I probably need to get away from the recovery, my program. If they probably like, the guys would be like, oh, thank God. But I think that we can do this. And I think that should be a major initiative. What do you think? Do you think it's possible? Put me in J. Reuben Long, damn it. serious.
None of us want to end up there, but I think I think that the first and most important way for us to make any difference at all is to get as much Narcan, naloxone on the streets of Myrtle Beach as possible.
Yeah.
And it's not, I don't know. I know that there's certain hotels that are kind of hot for overdoses. And I don't want to say that it's all the city of Myrtle Beach because, these numbers are reflective of Horry County as a whole. And I know that there are some other communities within Horry County that are of concern. So, that it would be good to sit down and strategize the entire county with the powers that be of Horry County to determine how we can hit the streets and get as much Narcan and fentanyl test strips on the streets as possible to try to at least start to make a difference. And I mean, we've done as much as we can do with what we've been given, and we're doing the best job that we can. But there's definitely room for a lot more.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And and that's another issue is like trying to get people into recovery to understand that it's okay to advocate. It's okay to step out of your 12-step meeting and like this is a separate issue, guys. I mean, really study your traditions, okay? But anyway, I won't go there. But the point I'm trying, I really think that this can be done. I think that we could raise the money. I definitely think we could get the naloxone. Then you have to get because here's the thing. We know this for a fact, too, that when we have these folks giving the naloxone out, going around with the little bowls or whatever they're doing, it's really neat. I wish you could see it. Just being kind to these people, right? Because they haven't been like looked at in the eye and told that we actually care about you. We want you to live. And if you're going to use drugs, we want to help you use them in a safe way. And lo and behold, that's one of the reasons I don't really hang around the bus a lot because I look like a cop. You know what I mean? They just kind of, and it's okay. I mean, I bring the stuff to them and I leave because I just, but the point I'm trying is that people are more likely to ask for help.
Yeah.
Right.
They're five times more likely to ask for help if they're participating in some type of harm reduction program than otherwise.
Right. And I want to mention this too, that Nicole has I went through this training. I don't know where my certificate is or whatever, but we've actually got harm reduction trainings and stuff. Nicole's big on training. Okay. She's already told me like, I don't get enough training. I know I need to get my peer support certificate and all that stuff because I'm realizing, in the last month or two, I've gotten back into daily operations at Freedom Recovery Center. And I'm realizing how much peer support and coaching I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like really calling somebody in the office and like talking them off of the ledge. Right. And I want to make sure because I can say, oh, I'm an old goat and I've been thorough, blah, blah, and doesn't mean that I'm doing it correctly. Right. And I know I need to be sensitive to that. So I do know that I need to get like trained in peer support. You've been telling me that. I know anyway, but I think there's hope. And I think you're trying very hard. And I wish I lived in Horry. I mean, sometimes I wish I lived there. I'd probably be thrown in jail if I was there. What if we just marched in Myrtle Beach? I don't know. What can we do? I don't know. I
can tell you that there's a group that is going to be marching in Market Commons on October 30th to try to bring some attention to the overdose crisis and the deaths. And the two moms that have organized it have both, I believe, lost their children to overdoses.
Okay, I don't know what day that is, October 30th, but we need maybe I can get out there. I'm having such a hard time getting away from home, but
October 30th is actually a Saturday.
Oh, it's a Saturday. Okay. But yeah, I mean, but just kind of changing gears a little. I had questions, but we went into all this, and I will say this, that's my home, right? I mean, it's and so I get kind of passionate about it, but I think we should try to do that. What the hell? I think we should try to get maybe like one of those old. Okay, I can tell you where the van came from. Phoenix Center actually donated the bus, and I guess they had it to Mark, and then they've even made the inside real nice. So when they come in, there's like these really comfortable chairs and that they can sit at and they can talk to, and they can check their arms and just talk to them, because they are human beings, man. Right? This is the part that I don't understand. And I will say this. Thank God that 30 years ago in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, in a parking lot right across from the roller coaster, there's a church there, but I was getting back in the car, and I say this probably every show, but I was getting back in the car because I was afraid to walk into this meeting because there were certain people that were mean to you if you had, and I'm going to say the correct language, Nicole, if you had a reoccurrence. Yay! I didn't say the other word. The language. That gives me an opportunity. Let's talk real quick. We've still got a little bit of time. Let's talk real quick about one of the things we talked about with the Recovery Advocacy Project is what can we kind of wanted to go after syringe exchange because we're like that. We want to go after, and we know that may not be a reality right now. We understand we're in a very red state, conservative kind of thing, but let's talk about language real quick. This is kind of one of your babies. What difference can that make if we can get to the legislators and change this language?
My belief is that one of the biggest barriers that we deal with is stigma. Yeah. And being able to overcome stigma, and the language that we use is at the crux of that.
Yeah.
How does it sound for me to say I'm a person who has experienced substance use disorder versus I'm an addict to the general population, right? So if we can, Nevada was successful in passing legislation to use person first language. And this applies not only to substance use disorder, but mental health disorders as well.
Okay.
And person first language is that you're putting the person, because they're a whole person who experiences X. And it not only does it help how others see that person, but it also helps the person in how they see themselves.
Yeah.
And that makes a huge difference, because I know that I didn't learn to love myself until I was in recovery. And I have gone through bouts of how I feel about myself, and the self-talk that I do to myself has a huge impact on how I see myself and how I feel as a person. So if we can address how the state addresses individuals who have experienced substance use disorder, or individuals who have experienced mental health disorders, I think that goes a long way to trying to tap away at this stigma, because we've got to start somewhere. And it worked successfully in Nevada at getting this legislation through. And that's also a great way for people to start to come together to do something. And it's a start to bring people together and build these relationships too.
Yeah. And Nicole, I was thinking, and since we have the Recovery Coalition, we get these faces like myself and yours, and and of course different. Make sure that there's all kinds of different people so that they can see that, that we can put a face with this thing, right? And I want to tell my little story about what I learned with language, and because you really helped me with this, because I didn't go through language training. And I do want to say this real quick, that I have heard legislators say that they even have stigmatic language written in the bills, because the bills go back to the epidemic that I went through, which was the crack cocaine epidemic. But so I'm going to say this: it is a very stigmatic term, but I'm going to say it so that for an example. But for so long, for many years, I would refer to myself as, I'm going to say it, don't get mad, as a crackhead. Okay. And I just thought it was funny. For years, I just, people would come, oh, I'm just an old crackhead. And then a kid would sit by me and I'd slap him on the back and say, oh, welcome, you're just an old crackhead like me. I had no idea until I started really looking at the language that I was using. Not only am I being abusive to the kid that sits next to me, I was like being abusive to myself. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you that after my wife and I talked about this, is she just does not want that language in her house. How cool is that? Like, she's not in recovery, but she does not want to hear people refer to themselves. She's very passionate about it. I don't know if she's on here or whatever, but she's very passionate. Like, Mike, don't call yourself that anymore. And don't call anybody else that. Because I am a person first. I am a person. And when we're talking to people out here in the community, and I say, oh, I'm an addict, I mean, what's the first thing they're going to think? Like, they're going to go, like, hey, honey, go lock the car door. Make sure. They just don't understand. But when I say that I'm a person in recovery, they understand that, and they see us not only, and Carly and I talked about this, not only being just like productive members of society, but like, man, running for Congress and
right,
and doing the things that you're doing, like Dr. Criss, doing these things. And it's not that just that we do recover. It's just like what Patrick Kennedy said. We have a lot that we can teach the world as people in recovery. We have a lot to offer the world if we'll just get out of these doggone cellars, man. But anyway, that I didn't mean to go on a rant about that, but that has taught me so much. And I think you've been, and I want you to know something, you have been someone who has really taught me that, because I got in recovery on October 21st, 1990. I'm coming up on a birthday one day at a time if I get there. But the point I'm trying to make is I didn't realize how harmful I was being to myself and to other people. Like, you would say, oh, okay, person, but it really is important. And I do think that this is a way for us to open the door to legislation. And then we can start talking to them about syringe exchange and other things that we need to be, and funding for certified recovery housing or funding for recovery community organizations. I didn't mean to get on a rant about that, but you can see I'm very passionate about language now. So thank you, Nicole.
You're welcome. Language makes a lot of difference, and you don't realize it, especially, like I said, with the self-talk.
Yes.
That's huge, because I can't try to do something. If I don't think I'm worthy, I can't chase after anything. And the self-talk is very important in my process for that.
Yeah. So we're kind of wrapping it up just a little bit, but real quick, did you have a good time at Mobilize Recovery? Was there something that you kind of came away from, other than we had some really cool people that we hung around, and we got to go to the Elvis.
Yes.
What the heck was that? The Elvis.
It was his penthouse.
We got to go in the Elvis penthouse. It was amazing. I never in a million years would have thought that I would be sitting in the Elvis penthouse. It was so cool.
Yes, and for those who didn't have the the experience of Mike Todd and the Elvis Penthouse Suite. He was hilarious, running from room to room, like, check this out, check that. It was fun, and I will definitely say that, you know, having you there and being able to spend that time with you, I think both of us before we went to that, we're fed up, frustrated, because what we do is very hard and challenging and frustrating. You know, you talked about your people, and it's hard when our people are spread all over the place. So going to Nevada and going to Las Vegas and being around our people and hanging out and having fun and learning some stuff and seeing what other people are doing and what's working in other states was huge for me. And I think that hopefully both of us came back with a new perspective, at least for a little while. Yeah,
I was hanging on by a thread when I went, and I felt, and now I feel like I'm. It's just part of it. I'm going to be like this until I die. I'm going to die trying to change stuff. We're going to make a difference. We really are. I mean, somebody's got to blaze the trail, right? I mean, some of us, you got to get the axe out and start like chopping down the trees, right? And then, you know what? And then sooner or later, there's going to be like a new batch of like these other smarter people that are. That's what I see. I've always been that person that just kind of holds a place for somebody that's just smarter. You know, I'm just I know that. And but what does the future hold for Nicole? Doctor?
Yeah. That's definitely my primary focus, and continue blazing the trail. Whatever that looks like and whatever that means, hopefully whatever I am able to do to stop it. I know that the deaths will never stop.
Yeah.
The fact that here in Horry County, the deaths have skyrocketed. I mean, the state of South Carolina is 5th highest in the country as far as the raise in deaths from 2019, I believe, to partway through 2020. And to know that out of that horrible statistic, Horry County is like far outweighing or outrunning every other county in the state. And I don't know what I can do to help that. I'm trying to work with people to figure out what it is that we can do together to make some kind of dent in that, and to show people love.
Yeah, and I talked to you about this. I mean, Horry County is the independent republic. It's a different place. I'm not going to kid you. I'm not. It's a different place. And if like the waterway, if you cross the waterway west into like Loris and Conway, I mean, just a totally different. And then, you know, it's a large area of land too. You know, I mean, it's a big county.
Yeah.
So it is a lot. And we can continue to talk about this harm reduction bus. And I don't know if our folks at Day Otis can help us, or there's got to be somebody out there. I mean, we got it done here. We can do this. So, yeah, Todd.
So, you know, real quick, as we're getting ready to land the plane on this thing, you know, I just want to remind everybody, our watchers and the people that watch this on the replay, as well as, you know, obviously those that listen to the audio podcast. We do have weekly episodes that come out. We are live every Thursday night, but we also have pre-recorded content. This week we had, on Tuesday, we had, at what point do we help drug users plus those suffering from SUD? And Wednesday we had, it's not okay. It's okay to not be okay. So, you know, you'll be able to catch this episode that's running live right now also on the website. That's recoveryfirstpodcast.com. So those are places, as well as also all major podcast platforms that you can catch the podcast. But I just wanted to throw that in there so that, you know, if people that are listening want to watch it, they can go to the Recovery First Podcast on Facebook or all the social media platforms, actually. And the same with those that are watching. If you want to listen to those, you can go to iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, etc., Spotify. So you can catch it. You can catch all of our episodes there. And we'll have, if you sign up for our newsletter at recoveryfirstpodcast.com, you'll be the first to know what's coming up during the week. And so that's my little 60-minute spill there, and I'll give it back to Mike and Nicole.
Oh, listen, here's our little platform, and we'll just continue to try. And I want to say this, Todd, we really, really, really appreciate what you're doing here in South Carolina. We're so grateful you moved here. Virginia had you for a while, and you did some wonderful stuff out there. And then Todd said, well, I want to move to South Carolina. I'm like, well, come on, and this is wonderful to give us a platform, because one thing that when we talked about it for a while before he moved out here. So I said, man, I just want to get these people that are trying so hard. It's not like the news folks are running out to talk to us. I mean, it's kind of weird too, because okay, so there's so many people dying, and it's we got to create our own platform. So that's what we're doing here. Maybe we'll have Nate Tate next week or somebody like that. That's scary. But Todd, thank you so much for doing this. And we love the Widows family and Kelly and everybody else. We're so appreciative of you helping us get our message out. Hope people listen to us on the replay. Let's talk about getting a harm reduction bus to Horry County. Recovery Coalition, big love. Take us out.
So 30 years ago, when I first came into recovery, we didn't have recovery housing. If someone was seeking recovery and maybe coming to meetings and didn't have anywhere to live, we'd basically try to help them find somewhere to live. And that's how it all started. We all started basically living together and keeping each other accountable in recovery. Now, as the years have gone through, it's basically turned into an industry. And with that industry, there comes a lot of challenges. There's quite a bit of exploitation. You're dealing with a very, very vulnerable population. So that's the reason that we started the South Carolina Recovery Housing Association, to help providers, to help other recovery housing operators, to help mentor them, to advocate for them. And one of the things that we did right off the bat was we started getting naloxone into all recovery housing in South Carolina. We were very fortunate to get a grant from the Clinton Foundation and some help from the Recovery Advocacy Project and Challenges Inc. and Favor Greenville, and all of them combined have helped the South Carolina Recovery Housing Association to begin getting naloxone into all recovery housing in South Carolina, and to help train their residents on the use of naloxone. We believe that is the first standard that we need to accomplish in South Carolina. Recovery housing operators are a very valuable resource to those suffering from substance use disorder in South Carolina, and we want to advocate for them, train them, mentor, and just work with them with whatever needs that they may have. If you want to get in touch with us, it's screcoveryhousing.org.